Bom dia e boa tarde a todos. Boa noite para quem não está no Brasil. Aqui estamos falando diretamente dos estúdios da Voitto para mais um canal aqui da nossa série. Opa, está tocando aqui no meu no meu YouTube, você acredita? Deixa eu desligar aqui porque eu deixei o YouTube ligado numa outra tela, mas eu esqueci de desligar o microfone. Mas, gente, hoje vamos ter uma sessão especial aqui. Eu sou o Sami Obara, do Roncha.org. Roncha é uma organização de alunados da Toyota, onde trazemos ao vivo nossos convidados de vários países do mundo, sempre os experts, especialistas na área onde eles estão falando. O convidado de hoje eu vou apresentar em breve, mas antes eu queria apresentá-los a Bárbara, que vai nos trazer algumas informações sobre a live de hoje, bem como alguns livros que nós temos aí à disposição. Bárbara, boa tarde.
Olá, pessoal, boa tarde, tudo bem com todo mundo? Bom, o Sami já deu uma introduzida e vocês já devem estar sentindo que o convidado de hoje vai realmente trazer muito conhecimento para a gente. E é claro que eu não poderia deixar de trazer um pouco mais de conhecimento para agregar também para vocês. Então, se vocês acessarem o nosso manual de bordo, esse link que está aqui na tela, através do QR Code, vocês vão ter também aos nossos materiais complementares. Um deles é o resumo do livro Reinventando as Organizações, disponível na Pocketbook for You, e o outro é um artigo falando sobre como a mudança de cultura organizacional ajuda a sua empresa. Então, ótimos conhecimentos para vocês continuarem se desenvolvendo. Além disso, convidar vocês também a participarem do nosso Insight premiado. Basta vocês tirarem uma foto, um print aqui da nossa tela durante a live, postar no seu Instagram Stories, marcando @Grupo Voitto e colocando ali qual é o seu insight, o que é que você gostaria de passar para o público, aquele conhecimento. E você já vai estar concorrendo também a um kit da Voitto ou um livro de Excel da nossa editora. Então, oportunidade não falta, viu, gente? No mais, vou deixar vocês aqui com o Sami, então, que com certeza o nosso conhecimento de hoje vai ser valioso.
Muito obrigado, Bárbara. E, gente, esse nosso convidado de hoje, eu o conheci lá na Polônia, lá perto de Varsóvia, onde nós estávamos palestrando numa mesma conferência. Fiquei impressionado com a profundidade que ele conhecia da indústria 4.0, do Lean. Ele passou 5 anos enfornado lá em Toyota City, lá em Nagoya, lá no Japão, nos laboratórios da Toyota, estudando essa metodologia que ele vai nos mostrar, ao ponto de que há 2 anos atrás eu o trouxe ao Brasil, para o Lean Conference Brasil, que é a conferência Lean anual que o Roncha promove no Brasil. E o professor doutor Christoph Roser, ele é um expert na área de produção Lean, de detectar gargalos. Além desses 5 anos que ele trabalhou no centro de pesquisas dos laboratórios da Toyota, ele também lançou 2 livros muito populares na Europa. No Brasil não tem em português ainda, provavelmente vai ter em breve, mas também ele publicou mais de 50 artigos premiados. E alguns deles sobre a indústria 4.0, que ele vai estar conversando hoje conosco. Os 2 livros importantíssimos na indústria que ele lançou, um é o Faster, Better, Cheaper, que fala sobre a história do Lean Manufacturing, sob a ótica de um professor doutor pesquisador sobre esse assunto. E o mais recente, que eu ainda não recebi a cópia, ele se chama All About Pulp Production, Guiding Practitioners on How to Select, Establish and Maintain Pulp Systems. Eu quero convidar o doutor, professor Christoph Roser. Bem-vindos. Welcome. How are you doing?
Thank you very much for having me here. It's good to see you again. It has been such a long time since we met in person, but I hope at one point when the pandemic is over, we will meet again.
That's excellent. And I just understand, today I found out you speak fluent Nihongo. So, Nihongo 喋りますか？どうですか？ペラペラです。
本当に5年間に日本で住んでいましたから、ちょっとだけ日本語できます。多分4歳の子供みたいの日本語ですだけです。ごめんね。
Very good. So he just said his Japanese level is about maybe 4 years old. So, but he is a very humble professor. Hey, Professor Christoph, let me ask you this question because a lot of people have the same question in mind. You know, this Industry 4.0, lean, some people say one replaces the other, some others say it's the same thing. 4.0 is lean. What is the difference and what are the conflicts between these two things? Are they different concepts? Please tell us.
Well, to answer that question, I first have to say that I'm a lean guy. So I see a lot of things through my lean glasses. And I do know a bit about Industry 4.0 too. But I see some good things and also some not so good things with Industry 4.0. But as a lean guy, for me, everything starts with lean. And the difficulties I see between Industry 4.0 and lean, on the other hand, is that with lean, we start with a problem and try to solve the problem. And one possible solution is Industry 4.0, but it's not necessarily the only solution. So with Industry 4.0, there's also the risk of building what we call in English monuments. You make a very expensive and big Industry 4.0 implementation, and then nobody dares to touch it anymore. Kind of, you make a big software system, but nobody dares to touch it. So people on the shop floor, they don't know programming, they don't really have access and permission, and the programmers are very expensive. So usually there's a shortage of time for programmers to change something. And even if there is time, if you change a big computer system, there's a risk of a bug stopping everything. So the problem with those Industry 4.0 monuments is that it's really hard to change, and that makes improvement, that makes Kaizen very, very difficult to do. And that's, for me, one of the problems I see with Industry 4.0, that once you have it, it's nearly impossible to change it.
Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of people are curious about this digital world that the Industry 4.0 is bringing. And some of them are, this question is about the main mistakes or misconceptions about lean and in the Industry 4.0. Because I've heard this, and please shed some light on this. People saying that if you become Industry 4.0, you are automatically becoming more digital and more productive, therefore more lean. Is that a real statement?
Not quite. Well, one point is correct. If you do Industry 4.0, by definition, you have more computers and software. But there are lots of common mistakes. And actually, I think the mistakes with Industry 4.0 are often the same mistakes people do with lean. And that, for me, is most of all a lack of PDCA, plan, do, check, act. Most companies or most projects, people are very good at doing something, at making some change, making some implementation. If it's lean or Industry 4.0, it doesn't matter, but they're good at doing things. But they often omit checking if it actually works. The check and act part of PDCA is very, very important, and I feel it is often omitted in Industry 4.0. Let me give you an example of a company which I will not name here, but say used RFID chips, radio frequency identity chips, for their material supply. And at the entrance of their warehouse, where the forklift drive in and out, they built a gate which had antennas. So whenever a forklift drives through the door, the antenna registered what material was going in or what material was going out. So the idea was to constantly update the database to have a better data quality of the material you have. And they implemented that, they made the antenna, and everybody was happy. They made a presentation, everybody was clapping their own shoulders. Yes, we are so great, we have done that, we are Industry 4.0. But I asked one of the forklift drivers, does it actually work? Can you tell me? And he said, well, the antenna works, but the computer system needs 15 seconds to process the data. So I have to drive in and wait for 15 seconds in the door before I get the green light to continue. And I just don't have the time. So I just drive through and later type it in by hand as I had this before. But none of the management really knew. They were so proud of their Industry 4.0, but they did not do the C&A of the plan, do, check, act. And that makes the whole project, well, very expensive project, but no benefit at all. And that happens a lot.
Impressive. And thank you for sharing this. There are some questions already coming from the listeners. And there's one that came before we started, which is what can be done to enable a value chain transformation with agility?
Yes, good question. In Lean, we like to do small steps. We like to do small manageable problems. And the same would apply to Industry 4.0. Many people, if they talk about Industry 4.0, they see like a big system which connects everything to everything else, kind of a kraken of data. So it's to think about big systems, but those big systems have a high risk of failure. So there's a high chance of things going wrong. And with those big systems, it's if they go wrong, they have the potential to stop everything. A lot of companies had big problems because they did some Industry 4.0 things and then nothing worked anymore. So the challenge with Industry 4.0 is to find a good project, a good problem. And actually, I would start even earlier than that. If you set out with the goal to do Industry 4.0, you limit yourself with your possible solutions. And in Lean, for me, the start of a Lean project is to find a good problem. What is your problem? And in Lean, sometimes if I ask plant manager, what problem do you want to solve? And the answer is, well, I don't have Kanban, so I want to have Kanban. But not having Kanban is not a problem. Kanban are a possible solution, but your problem is something related to cost, time, or quality. So you need to start with a good problem and then search for solutions. And one of those solutions may be computers, maybe Industry 4.0, but it doesn't have to be. So do not limit yourself to Industry 4.0 solutions. They may be the right solution for some problems, but they're not automatically the right solutions all the time. Yes.
So this brings up a question because a lot of companies are thinking about, I want to bring in Lean, I have a budget, I need to, and then there is the Industry 4.0, using the Kanban as an example. Should they do Lean first, or let's just do 4.0 first because it solves the other problem? How do you see that conflict between which one should I do first?
Here again, I have to point out I'm having my Lean glasses, so I'm seeing it from the point of view of Lean, but I do believe Lean and Industry 4.0 can coexist. They can both work together, but, and again, Lean guy here, you have to start with a good problem. You have to think, what problem do you want to solve? And some problems are more suited for Industry 4.0, but not all. But if you have an Industry 4.0 solution that fits your problem and is actually the best solution, then that may be a good place to implement Industry 4.0. And again, do small steps. I've seen projects which work very which worked very well with improving quality. I know of one foundry in Australia, which before had defect rates of like 16%. And in a first try, they used human knowledge. And people tried to optimize the system and got the defects rates down from 16% to around 6%. So already a good improvement. But after that, they used artificial intelligence and had those self-learning neural networks analyze the data for connections between settings and environments and quality. And they managed to get the defect rate below 1% with Industry 4.0 with artificial intelligence. So that's a very limited problem, limited size problem. And if it goes wrong, it's unlikely to break the company, but it's a small solvable problem.
Mhm. That's another thing that's interesting. And you just mentioned the human knowledge and computer working together, because the Lean philosophy has a very people-oriented view. How to not lose focus on people and have the best technologies in the Industry 4.0? Is there a conflict over there, people and machine? What do you think?
I think people are still very, very important in manufacturing. Sometimes I have the feeling managers tend towards more and more automation because they want to get rid of people, because people sometimes disagree, even with managers. And not every manager likes that. But computers don't disagree, they just don't do anything if they go wrong. So you will continue to need people for the foreseeable future. If you put in a lot of Industry 4.0, you just replace lower skilled people with higher skilled and therefore more expensive computer people and technicians. So you will continue to need people. And that's actually one of the additional problems I see with Industry 4.0. Coming back to an earlier question with the monoliths, with the monuments, it's really, really hard to change. And you need people for Kaizen. A computer will not improve itself, but people will be able to improve. You need people to actually see the potential. You need people to see what could be done, and you need people then to make it better. If you get rid of all the people, you may have a system, but it doesn't improve, and over time you will fall back and it will become less and less good. And Industry 4.0 projects are very difficult to change because of all the programming. And the common shop floor guy, he doesn't really probably know much programming, and he doesn't even have access to the program of the Industry 4.0 project. So you need programmers, and you need to convey the idea of the shop floor people to the programmers, and there may be some loss of information. You have a good shop floor person which doesn't know about programming. You have a good programmer which doesn't know about shop floor, and lots of information can be lost. And actually, Toyota is in many places trying to reduce to some degree automation and often use more people. They have skilled craftsmen, they call them takumi, where they work with their hands and they are really, really good in one special field. They learn still by doing by hand to get the feeling for the material, to kind of, like when you drive a car, you know by the feeling if something feels odd or wrong. That's kind of a skill honed by years of driving. And the same with the takumis, they have years of experience shaping plastics, for example. And their job is to get this skill into the computer to make it automated. Yeah, but Toyota is trying to reduce more and more robots. And also they have a very nice concept of Karakuri Kaizen, where they try to reduce computers altogether, to have mechanical gadgets, mechanical tricks to solve problems which in the Western world would be often solved by computers. But the advantage is the mechanical things. People on the shop floor understand mechanics. They see, okay, this gear is jammed, and if I change this, it will work differently. People on the shop floor can fix those kind of mechanical things. So Industry 4.0 can help a lot, but it's not the solution for every problem.
Very good. Excellent answer. And there is A couple of questions here that I find interesting here. One is about cost. And the person here is asking you to speak a little bit slower because maybe it's very, very fast. However, the question is about the cost of implementing Industry 4.0. Is that better in a company that's already lean, or it doesn't matter?
I think lean helps. The cost of implementing 4.0, depending on what you do, it can be very, very high. And again, coming back to the PDCA, sometimes people think just setting up the sensors, collecting all the data, send you Industry 4.0. But that's only half of the task. The second half is debugging, solving problems, and making it actually work well. Like the RFID gate I mentioned earlier, where they set up the gate and the antennas and everything, but they failed to debug and make it actually work. And because of that, it did not work at all. So with Industry 4.0, it can help, but it can be very expensive. And the benefit has to be worth the cost. So I know companies which pretty much bet the bank on Industry 4.0. And because of that, the company is now bankrupt. One company, they were working with wood, and they're looking at the grain of the wood, a camera to recognize which way the grain is oriented. And that was a nice Industry 4.0 project, but it didn't work. And now the bank owns the company because it's bankrupt.
Mm-hmm. And I know that this question, you've already talked about that twice or three times, but I think a lot of people have questions about this 4.0 and lean. Victor Hugo Marquez Klein is asking, Christoph, in one organization that doesn't have either lean or 4.0, do you think there should be an order of implementation? Which one should always come first, or that doesn't matter that much?
For me, lean is the underlying principle of improvement, of Kaizen. So lean is the philosophy of working towards the same goal for a long time. When Toyota implemented single-minute exchange of die, SMED, they took about 30 years to always improve SMED, improve and improve it again. So for me, it starts with lean, the ability to focus on problem solving, the ability to do Kaizen, the ability to improve. That's where it starts. And then Industry 4.0 is just one of the possible tools to solve your problems. But first, you need to get into your problem-solving mindset. There's a saying, if you run, but you don't know where you're going, then you will end up somewhere, but definitely not where you want it to be. So it starts with a focused improvement. What problems do you want to solve? Which for me is one of the cores of lean.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. And we are almost running out of time, but I want to squeeze in one more question. And that one is from Lucas Souza Freitas. He's asking, Christoph, how can the lean professionals' vision enhance the results and performance of a 4.0 industry? Does that help being lean to implement, being a lean guy to implement Industry 4.0?
I think yes, but again, lean glasses. I am a lean guy, so of course I talk good about myself. That's normal. But I think it helps. And with lean, you think about structured problem solving, about Kaizen, and Industry 4.0 is one of the tools. Of course, it needs some additional skills. Just being good with paper Kanbans doesn't mean you know how those big databases and artificial intelligence works. So just being lean alone will make it very difficult to implement artificial intelligence. or to set up an enterprise management system or that kind of things. So Lean alone would need additional skills to do Industry 4.0. And I think if you do a project on Industry 4.0, you would need, besides some Lean person for the general direction, you also would need some programmers and AI guys, and you probably would need to get the important knowledge, the important skill set in the room. And Industry 4.0 need more skills than what often is common in the normal Lean world.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Hey, Christoph, I really want to thank you so much for spending this time with us. Hopefully you will accept an invitation to come back soon. But I wanted to, just before you go, can you tell us about your book? I know you just launched a new book. Can you tell us more about it?
Yes, I just launched a new book. It's a pretty hefty one. It's over 400 pages, and it's all about pull production. And I try to explain how to do pull production for the practitioner. It's you all know Kanban, but there are many more ways to do pull, one convip, reorder point, and other things. And I try to give an overview which one you should use when, and try to help practitioners with establishing pull systems. I have a whole chapter about how to select the pull system. I have a whole chapter about how to implement it, how to maintain it, and really trying to have assistance for the practitioner and go into detail how to do pull. It's not a book to be read cover by cover. Of course you can, but it's also for the always busy practitioners to jump to the chapters they need to solve their problems. So I hope it will help the people. Spanish and a German translation are in the works. Yes, but I'm very proud of it. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you for accepting the invitation. And hopefully we will see you soon again.
Sure, definitely.
All right.
Very good to see you again.
Thank you. Gente, que bacana, hein? Alguém explicando para a gente, nos mínimos detalhes, como é que isso daí funciona, para a gente implementar a indústria 4.0, para ter o Lean ao mesmo tempo, o que vem primeiro, o que é mais importante, como é que é a perspectiva de pessoas e robôs juntos. Por isso, acho que vocês não vão querer perder a próxima sessão. Vai ser com o Lando Nishida. Ele é um Senior Director do Roncha.org e passou mais da metade da carreira dele no exterior, na Europa e em outros países, fazendo implementações de vários conceitos aí da indústria 4.0, mas especialmente do Lean. Nós vamos estar conversando com ele aqui. Ele está morando no Brasil agora. Recentemente ele se mudou de volta, estava em Boston com um projeto nosso lá, e ele vai abrir aí o que existe por aí. E vocês vão ficar bastante impressionados. Gente, muito obrigado pela participação de hoje. Lembrem-se, todas as terças-feiras, às 13h30, nós temos esse encontro. Nos vemos em breve. Tchau, tchau, gente.